from this. આપણે જે બધા yeah.
So રાજનભાઈ, આ સોલ જે લખ્યા છે તે તો એમને તમિલમાં કે ઇંગ્લિશમાં લખ્યા હશે રે?
સંસ્કૃત.
ના, સંસ્કૃત.
સંસ્કૃતમાં. ઓકે.
રજનીભાઈ, મારી પાસે આ બુક છે, મારા મધરે આપી છે, સોળસ ગ્રંથની. એમાં all these things are listed.
I see. અને પછી એના લોકલ ટ્રાન્સલેશન થયા.
પછી બધા ટ્રાન્સલેશન થયા. રાઈટ.
Got it. Thank you.
અને આપણે સ્વાધ્યાયમાં શું એક વિષ્ણુ કે કૃષ્ણ ભજે સ્વાધ્યાયમાં?
સ્વાધ્યાયમાં યોગેશ્વર ભગવાન.
હા, એટલે
કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન.
કૃષ્ણ ભગવાનનું સ્વરૂપ.
ઓકે.
પેલા ગોળાની ઉપર કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન ઉભા છે ને, which is basically manifestation of યોગેશ્વર. નીચે પગ નીચે પૃથ્વીનો ગોળો છે.
અને એમાં એવું છે યોગેશ્વર ભગવાનનું સ્વરૂપને એ લોકો વધારે કરે છે. પણ આપણે ગીતામાં છેલ્લે યોગેશ્વરનું જ આપે છે ને.
He is using the word પુરુષોત્તમ, that means highest purusha. ઈશ્વર અને યોગનું combination is the યોગેશ્વર. So all the yogas come to me ultimately. Every part, all 4 yogas eventually come to me as a Ishvara. So I am the controller of all this yoga. Call it that way. All right. We don't have to go through every one of them, but that's the idea. So I just sent you the list of 16.
આપણે કરીએ છે ને.
Right.
So those Yamnastic is just the prayer form, right? But there are books on that? Like
the prayer that we use, it's basically text which explains some of these ideas. And then the prayer is part of that. And I actually never have personally read all those Sanskrit books. But I'm just giving you summary of that. Okay. So what is Yamunastic? Now let me just give you history so that you know. The way it is stated is that he was sitting on the bank of Yamuna and he got enlightenment. So that is how he viewed. Now he began to see Yamuna is the daughter of Lord Surya, sun. And also he mentioned about the Yama too. But basically he comes from Kalinda Mastak, Parvat ત્યાંથી આવે છે અને ultimately meets Ganga. And the story goes something like this, when Yamuna meets Ganga, that becomes the most pious place. Saraswati meets there too. So he basically says that tu Yamuna nadi દોડતી आई કે તું કોઈ સ્વર્ગમાંથી आई. આની દીકરી સૂર્ય ભગવાનની દીકરી અને મને પાવન કર્યો અને મને એન્લાઇટનમેન્ટ કર્યો અને I am praying to you because you are bringing me to Godhead. That is the idea. Like he is sitting on the bank of Yamuna where he claims, or at least he appears, that he got enlightened.
Who is he? When you say he, who is he?
Vallabhacharya. Mahaprabhuji. Now he is called Mahaprabhuji as well, So Prabhu is God. So basically Mahaprabhu. Call it that.
So the other thing, Yamunastak is Yamuna Maharani, right? Krishnani Patrani. We worship that way too, right?
It is also mentioned she is the 4th wife of Lord Krishna. Satyabhama, Rukmani, then Radha came in the picture, which I don't know whether she is considered 3rd wife or not, but apparently he claims Yamuna is the 4th wife.
Oh.
Yamuna, Rajanbhai, Yamuna here is Yamuna Nadi or Yamuna as a person?
Well, both. Yamuna person is the daughter of Lord Surya, who came as a river from heaven.
River ne
he's talking about river, but his analogy is of Yamuna Maharani, which is the daughter of Surya.
પણ આપણામાં જે ફોટા 3નું હોય છે, રાઈટ? વચ્ચે શ્રીનાથજી, એક બાજુ મહાપ્રભુજી ને એક બાજુ અમને મળે, તો મહારાણી માનું રિલેશનશિપ શું શ્રીનાથજી બાવા જોડે? તો
because he got enlightened, he saw Lord Krishna in the form of Srinathji because of Yamuna Maharani. So
Okay.
the enlightenment was what? He visualized Lord Krishna in the form of Srinathji in that form.
એટલે એને ભક્તિ
Precisely. So she was the instrument to bring him close to Srinathji.
એટલે મહાપ્રભુજી એટલે જ વલ્લભાચાર્ય.
Mahaprabhu is Vallabhacharya.
So Yamuna Rani is a symbolic symbolism.
યમુના મહારાણી મહાપ્રભુજી અને વચ્ચે શ્રીનાથજી.
હા, એના ત્રણનો ફોટો આપણે હંમેશ જોડે જ હોય છે.
Vallabhacharya got enlightenment on the banks of river of Yamuna, and he saw Lord Krishna manifesting as a Srinathji at that time.
એટલા માટે ત્રણની સાક્ષી છે.
So Rajan bhai, is it safe to say in today's world કે સૂર્ય ભગવાનની દીકરી યમુનાજી હતા અને એનું નામ એવર કરવા માટે નદીનું નામ યમુના પાડવામાં આવ્યું?
યમુનાને જ એ દીકરી તરીકે ગણે.
I think, I mean, this is purely pragmatic point of view. કે ભાઈ, Yamuna is a river. When he was sitting on the bank of river, and he apparently had a divine vision. So now the story is made up about the river is a daughter of Surya, and she came from heaven as a person and then became the river. That is just a mythological story.
પેલા
River
ગંગા
is just,
જમુના એ બધી રિવર છે, પણ આપણે એને પેલું કેવું કે લેડી તરીકે પૂજીએ છીએ.
ના તો ગંગા ને યમુના ભેગા મળે ને એટલે
સંગમમાં.
એ તો બહુ પછી.
પ્રયાગ
બોલો શકુબેન.
ગંગા કોણ હતા? એ કયા પુત્રી હતા? કે કોઈ એ પણ પાછા કોઈના પુત્રી હતા?
Ganga.
ગંગા
મને
king.
ખ્યાલ નથી. Yeah,
ગંગા છે
I don't know the story of Ganga. I don't remember the story.
છે ખરું યાર.
ગંગા તો શંકર ભગવાનની જટામાંથી આવ્યા, right?
Ganga was actually is a river. I mean, the history, mythology, that Ganga is a river directly from heaven that descended as a river and fell in the air. Okay, she was going to come from heaven to the earth, and Shankar Bhagwan held it on the air.
But Kailash is itself, they call it as heaven, right? So from where Ganga Nadi's Ugam is, that Kailash and Mansarovar, that entire area, they used to call it as a heaven. I think these are a symbolic, and the only way, the river is one thing which stays through the generations. It's always there. Existence of a river is prominent in Hindu mythology for that reason only, because river is there, was always there.
And that the stories was added to the existing river.
That's correct.
To make it look, make us feel a sort of pious connection.
પણ મારો પ્રશ્ન એ છે કે આપણે હોય કે લક્ષ્મીજી નારાયણ એટલે લક્ષ્મી નારાયણ હોય, પછી શિવ પાર્વતી હોય, રામ ને સીતા ને, તો શ્રીજી બાવાની જોડે એવું કોઈ એમને
જમનાજી
બસ એ જ ને, રાઈટ?
I mean, because she is considered the fourth wife of Lord Krishna.
શ્રીજી બાવાને 4 હતી ને, કૃષ્ણને 4 રાણીઓ હતી.
શ્રીજી બાબા એક સ્વરૂપ છે.
રાઈટ, યા એ તો મને ખ્યાલ છે. પણ એટલે એમને મહારાણી જે આપણે હંમેશા ફોટો જોડે હોય છે,
ના
એ જ પટરાણી કે જે એમના
Yamuna and Jamuna is same thing.
ઓકે.
Yamuna Maharani and Jamuna Maharani is the same thing.
Means Srinathji Bhagwan is actually the same as Lord
Krishna. એ તો હા.
Precisely right, yeah.
શકુબેન, પણ ચારમાં કોઈ લાડકી નહોતી એમ. આ બીજા બધાને એક જ હતી.
I think મહાપ્રભુજી અને યમુના મહારાણી એ તો devotees, right? એટલે they enlightened and saw the શ્રીજી બાબા.
Sriji Baba, right, yeah.
એટલે શ્રીજી બાબાનું સ્વરૂપ એમને આપ્યું, એવું કહેવાય?
Now, like he saw Krishna Bhagwan in that form.
હા, તો એવું જ થયું ને, તો એટલે ફોર્મ એમને આપ્યું ને.
No, in the form of Srinathji.
એમણે આપ્યું ને, એમણે ભગવાન એમને દર્શન આપ્યા એ પ્રમાણે.
અને દર્શન આપે એટલે પછી આપણે એ ફોર્મમાં એને પૂજન કરવા મળે, રાઈટ?
Now, there is another story which is also similar. There was a disciple of Vallabhacharya called Damodar. So at night, Vallabhacharya suddenly had a dream and he heard Lord Krishna telling him something and appearing as Lord Srinathji Bhagwan, and then he wakes up in the morning and asks Damodar, did you hear anything? So Damodar answers the question by saying, yeah, I heard someone talking to you, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. So, and then Vallabhacharya says it was Lord Krishna who came to me in my dream and initiated me and told me to carry forward the principles of Pushti Marg or theology of Pushti Marg down the chain. That's another story. Now, these are all stories. I mean, so idea is basically somehow he had a divine vision of some kind, and after that he just stated by different people in different ways.
That's a strange point. શ્રીનાથજી નું સ્વરૂપ આવી રીતનું આટલા બધા દાગીના આવું બધું કેવી રીતે ખબર પડી?
દાગીના બધું તો મને લાગે છે આપણે પછી
કેટલું બધું ભરેલું
artistic vision.
Artistic vision એટલે આ imaginary vision જ
I mean, so basically he cleared, I mean, obviously he had some kind of vision. Now after that the artist draws what he says.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes like a imagination of the artist.
પણ પછીથી કેવું છે કે મણકો તો આ મણકો અહીંયા જ હોય ને આ અહીંયા જ હોય ને એવી જાતનું એટલે આમ કે that's how it's emphasize. એટલે આમ એવું થાય કે હા બોલો
પણ સ્મિતાબેન જુદા જુદા સ્વરૂપ શ્રીનાથજીને આપણે તો આપણે વધારે કન્ફ્યુઝ થતે તો he just said it has to be પછી હીરો અહીંયા જોવો જોઈએ અહીંયા
maybe એવું હશે યાદ આવી.
Since you're asking me a question, there is a book by Hans Torvestein. He's a Swiss scholar. The name of the book is Vedanta, Heart of Hinduism, and he writes very beautifully. I mean, now he is very, very interested, very knowledgeable about Vedanta. But in the last commentary, he says something which now you mentioned, I remember. Vedanta is a broad theological principle, very attractive and great principles. But to argue that Lord Krishna wears pitambar clothes and puts more peach on and put this kind of necklace, that kind of dogmatism is meant for common purpose, common people.
That's right.
That is not the theological principle. It is just to entice common person. And I mean, he obviously is making kind of fun of that, that is really fanaticism. When you begin to argue કે ભાઈ આવા કપડા પહેરે ને આવા માથામાં મુગટ
આપણે બધું કેવું કે બધું એક્ઝેક્ટ આવું જ કરવાનું આમ જ કરવાનું એટલે that's what questionable એમ કે
But see,
આટલું બધું ડિટેલમાં થોડું એમને ખબર પડી હશે એમ.
It doesn't matter what it is, but I think the main reason this all forms came about is for you to focus on something. That's whatever right. It is. It's a mugat and pitambar, 5,000 dagina પહેર્યા છે કે whatever it is, please pay don't attention to that, but pay attention to the message behind it. You focus on that picture in your mind and get.
I agree. Yeah, you are right. I think
that is true, but all of these different things have created so many factions. And તમે વિચાર કરો કે જે લોકો there is
આમાં જ પડી રહે છે ઘણા.
તમે કે for example there are people who would not, તમે કહો જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ કહો તો એ તમને જય જય ગોકુલેશ કે જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ ના કે.
But why, Emma, what difference does it make?
It doesn't make any difference, but the point
if he even says ke bhai tu murak che bhai tu shant rahe ne mane shant rahe વાત પતી ગઈ.
I think the bigger point that Dinesh bhai, it has created so many factions.
Yeah, that's true. Rajan bhai,
but that's a human nature.
Yeah. આપણે જે કહીએ છીએ કે પુષ્ટિ માર્ગમાં શ્રીનાથજી પણ આપણા કલ્યાણરાયજી પછી છોટા દ્વારકાધીશ કે ત્યાં જાવ તો એ બધા પણ એ પછી જુદું જુદું સ્વરૂપ થઈ ગયું બધું એમ.
ના આગળ આવે છે. Then he goes on to say, then they go on describing that he manifested in this many forms. So they are Okay, Krishna, Srinathji was one form, but Lord Krishna manifested in something like 9 or 10 different forms. આપણે જે બધા નામો
તો
બોલીએ છીએ
દરેકમાં પાછી એમની રાણી હશે, દરેકમાં રણછોડ રાય ને દ્વારકાધીશ ને બધામાં પાછી એમની બાજુમાં રાણી બી ખરી
ના
એમની?
એમ I don't think so.
16,000 હતી ને.
16,000 હતી.
કૃષ્ણ ભગવાનની 16,000.
I think, remember, there are 500 years between Vallabhacharya and now. So there were a lot of descendants who kept on adding and changing and modifying and, you know, so you have to understand, you know, depending upon, there were 8 kids and 8 kids. So they kept on thinking, and as a matter of fact, one of these, Swami, and I can't remember his name, he has written so many books on these ideas. Actually, from what I remember reading, that he wrote more than most of the Indian Hindu literature combined together.
Oh my God.
So he basically expanded to an extraordinary degree. So every time you expand, you begin to describe something that wasn't there before. So I mean, I'm not too dogmatic about any of these things.
Since, you know, basically we know that that's the same God,
Right.
but we are doing all this stuff, so you know, at least we should understand that this is what is this all different names, you know.
Yeah, right. We'll come
But
to
Rajendra bhai,
yeah.
even the individuals during those times, for the sake of what you call economics or getting money out of it or livelihood, can create something like this,
Oh,
right?
absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh, see.
સ્વામિનારાયણમાં કેટલા બધા સેક્ટ છે જુઓ ને તમે સ્વામિનારાયણ
Yeah.
કેટલા બધા ચાર પાંચ ડિવિઝન પડી ગયા છે રાઈટ
Yeah.
because everyone
Right.
wants to have power.
Yeah.
Economics.
Precisely.
અશોકભાઈ કેટલો ટાઈમ બાકી છે?
We have another about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll continue and when it finishes, we'll stop. Okay. So Malbodha is another text which basically uses the principles of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So it essentially makes it more palatable using all those principles. Vedic considered by Vedas, Laukik considered by sages. We'll just move on. Let's move on. Okay. Now this is another question that Nainaben asked. And I think this is where Vallabhacharya and this sect comes in a fanatic way. I don't know whether Vallabhacharya himself or his followers or his descendant did it. But see, there are two ways to look at Sarva Deva Upasana. It means worshipping more than one deity or all deities, which is Bahudeva Upasana. So one way to look at it is you can pray to any deity that you want to. Other is Ekadeva Upasana. Only worship only one God. So Vallabhacharya sect, Pustimarg teaches, this is what Pustimarg website says. Worshippers of many deities believe that all devas are equal. They neither can worship any one deity wholeheartedly, nor they can contemplate worship as ultimate life mission. So basically it says, don't do it. Only pray to Lord Krishna in the form of, one of the form of Lord Krishna that is manifested. So basically Ananya Ashraya, that means Ashraya on someone else is not good. It is call it to be fundamentalism. But that's what it is. That is what the theology of Pustimarg says. All right, this goes further. Let's move on. Next one. So, well, this is Vallabhacharya himself now. This is what Vallabhacharya wrote in one of the texts. Viveka Dhairya Ashraya. One should worship no other gods or goddesses but Lord Krishna. So he's clear about it. One should never go on one's own accord to other gods or goddesses with or without purpose to have darshan. So he's even, and now again, let me put it this way. The authorship of many of this is attributed to Vallabhacharya, but we don't know for fact that is what he did. It is quite conceivable that somebody else wrote it and is ascribed to Vallabhacharya. But this text says this, one should never go to some other god or even for darshan. one should never pray any other gods or goddesses to grant anything. So basically it clearly says only Krishna, nobody else. And this is the text. This is written in a text called, a book called Viveka Dhairya Ashraya. Now, it is one of the 16 texts that I mentioned. So, whether it is written by him, but remember, lot of texts that are ascribed to Shankaracharya, many historians question whether they were actually written by Shankaracharya himself. So, what happens is this: when a person is well known and becomes great, everybody who writes, if they write that I am the one who wrote it, nobody pays attention to it. But if they say that Vallabhacharya did it or Shankaracharya wrote it, then suddenly it becomes more important. આપણે બધી વસ્તુ કશું બી ના હોય તો કે વેદ વ્યાસે લખી, right? આપણે કશી બી ટેક્સ્ટ આવે તો કે વેદ વ્યાસ was the author. The reason is Ved Vyas had a power and authority. So if you say Ved Vyas wrote it, then people say, okay, well then it must be true. But the problem is this: Ved Vyas wrote texts, or the texts that were described to be written by him, he must have lived 1,000 years, because many of the texts happened several centuries after the first one, and then a few centuries after that. So unless he kept on living for 1,000 years, he couldn't written all those texts. So what happens is this: either the Ved Vyas was a name, a title given to anyone. The first guy was Ved Vyas, and anybody who acquired the knowledge and power became known as Ved Vyas, or the title was carried forward. So now everybody says Ved Vyas wrote it, doesn't mean the original guy wrote it. Some of the descendant or some of the holders of that Padvi is the one who may have written that. So same thing when we talk about Shankaracharya, because Shankaracharya, there are lineages, 4 lineages of Shankaracharya now. So there are hundreds of Shankaracharya after Shankaracharya. So which Shankaracharya wrote, who knows? Same thing, some of the texts that are written or ascribed to be a Vallabhacharya may or may not have been written by him, but are given the prominence because it is said to be written by Vallabhacharya. But this is what it is. That's a text. All right, let's move on. Vallabhacharya and Bhagavad. આપણે નાના હતા ત્યારે સપ્તાહ કરતા હતા, ખબર છે? આપણા વડોદરામાં ને અમદાવાદમાં કે અઠવાડિયાની સપ્તાહ ચાલે. The text of Pushtimarg says, no, that's not right. This is what he writes. Or I don't know whether he writes or someone else writes, but Pushtimarg Sampradaya writes. Vaishnava should adopt Bhagavad as a course of their life and not a part-time business. There is no importance of Sapta Pravachan in Bhagavad. So essentially what he says, કે તમે અઠવાડિયું આવો ને પછી તમે બાકીના 358 દિવસ કશું કરવા ના હોય, so don't even bother with that. Either you do it every day or don't do it. Sapta, he basically minimizes the importance of Sapta. The reason Sapta came is because, remember I told you the story of Parikshit Raja. He had 1 week to live because of the curse. And he said, in 1 week, in 7 days, I want to know everything that needs to be known about this world and who created, how all these things came about. So the story goes that Sukadev told him the genesis of the world in 7 days. So that is how Saptah came. But Vallabhacharya says, no, that's not the way it should be. Because you are paying attention only for 1 week, and after that, if you don't bother. All right. Another thing that always, this is something that I intentionally look for. આપણા પ્રથા છે ને કે 3 દિવસ આમ કે when they have menstrual period they go separate and whatnot. I mean, what is the genesis of that? I didn't know, but this is the genesis of that. Indra was guilty of Brahma Hatya because of execution of a demon called Vrtrasur. Indra's guilt was placed on menstrual discharge of the woman, and this is the reason Hindu women observe 3 days seclusion. Now, I mean, that sounds kind of corny and bizarre, but that's the explanation.
Yeah. Why India's guilt should be put in the woman's thing? It should be put in the man's thing,
Why
not
do
the
the
woman's
women
thing.
have to suffer?
Rajan
I don't know, but this is the mythological story behind it. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, I think it's dumb, but that's the way it is. So I just wanted to do.
પુષ્ટિ માર્ગ ને બધામાં તો આપણામાં તો
This
બહુ
is-
કેટલું બધું બોલાય
This is part of the Pushti mark, by the way.
yeah it is so bad.
So these are all rituals of Pushti mark. So I'm just making a point for you to know. Not that I agree with it. All right. All right, let's move on.
હમણાં સ્મિતાબેન બાજુ બેઠા છે એટલે ના agree થાવ.
There is another text called Siddhanta Muktavali. Now he is talking about salvation by doing seva. You know, the seva, what is the importance of આપણે જે સવારે પછી સેવા અઠવાડિયે 8 વાગે સેવા કરે ને
આપણે તો સેવન કરેલી હોય એટલે સવારની બપોરની સાંજ.
મંગળવારે દર્શન પછી 8 વખત દિવસમાં 8 વખત. તો he is saying the importance of seva.
Okay.
The salvation of God is offering by offering seva. A devotee of God who wishes to understand and reach Krishna must offer seva to Krishna with selfless devotion and love. Now that seva is divided in 8 sections, you know. So seva is of 3 kinds. By body called tanuja. I didn't know that tanuja is the meaning of body. I mean, we had no access tanuja, but I didn't know tanuja is body. So,
Now we know.
Vitija, which is money, and manasi, which is mental. So there are 3 kinds of seva: by body, by mind, and by money.
Okay,
But
yeah.
that makes sense, Rajan. By tan, with, and man.
Yeah, you're right.
Tan is the body.
Tana is a body, Tana Usha.
It's a tana uja.
Right. I mean,
Uja,
I mean,
tanni
once I connect it, I can see tan, after tan kahiye. But I didn't know tanuja actually is a derivative of that word tan that we are talking about.
You're right.
No, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
એટલે
God,
તન
આપણે
ધન,
વેદાંતમાં આપણે ભણીએ છીએ ને કે ભાઈ God is a અધિભૌતિક physical world, અધિદૈવિક and આધ્યાત્મિક world. So it's basically talking about how all these things are connected. All right, let's move on.
ભજન એક છે ને તન મન ધન શ્રીજીના ચરણોમાં. That's what it
તન
came
મન
from.
ધન.
Yeah, exactly right. You're right.
તન મન ધન.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brahma Sambandh, I think I mentioned already, but I'll just read. Just as a Ganga purifies all that enters it, all souls, when they form relationship with me means Lord Krishna, become pure. There is no other way to purify a soul in this age when everything has degenerated and become corrupt. Offer everything to me, all your actions, all your possessions, your very soul, and it will be purified by its association with me, Lord Krishna. Like devotees of an age gone by, become totally dedicated to me, and I will lead you to liberation. So the process of Brahman Sambandh is basically developing a relationship with Lord Krishna for the ultimate salvation, because he is going to carry you to the ultimate liberation. That's what he says. And that is part of text called Siddhanta Rahasya. આપણે સિદ્ધાંત રહસ્યને એક ભજન ગાઈએ છીએ આપણે.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the explanation of Brahma Sambandh. All right, let's move on. Rituals, I already talked about Brahma Sambandh. It's a relationship between Bhagwan and Jiva. So that relation is Ansha and Anshi. So that means fraction and total. So basically it makes a point. It is not relations of equal. Atman is not Brahman. Atman is a fraction of Brahman. That's the point he's making here. Initiation of Brahma Sambandh therefore helps being recalling the forgotten relationship with his Anshi Bhagwan. So by doing Brahma Sambandh, you begin to reacquaint yourself with a relationship that you already had, but you didn't know. So knowledge brings the understanding that I am a fraction of God. That's the point. Yeah.
So બ્રહ્મ સંબંધ વખતે એ બી કહે ને કે પેલી તુલસીની કંઠી પહેરવાની, તો એનું કઈ આમ જ કે ખાલી એનું સિગ્નિફિકન્સ કાઈ નહીં?
I'm not sure, Kabhi. I mean, it is very.
તુલસી બહુ આમ કે sacred plant કહેવાય છે એટલે.
Yeah, I maybe just a process of symbolic presentation. You know, Kabhi. I don't think it. બ્રાહ્મણમાં પેલું જનોઈ બાંધવાનું કેવું છે કે જનોઈ સંસ્કાર થાય તો they just basically reminding yourself that you are connected to Godhead. So I guess this is a different way of looking at it.
તુલસી વિવાહ કરીએ છીએ એટલે તુલસીના એની સાથે લગ્ન કરે છે ને, તો તુલસીને આપણે એમ કે ભગવાનનું એનું એ ગણતા હશે એટલે કદાચ તમે પાછી રહે તમારી સાથે.
Maybe that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Tulsi also happens to be Tulsi also happens to be medicinally very powerful plant.
Right.
That's true.
So what happens is the substance of like people getting life out of something at a time when they were sick or something, that particular component has been attached to this entire mythology.
Possible, yeah. I mean,
કોઈએ એક્સપ્લેન નહીં કરેલું કે કંઠી પહેરવાની, તમે ધર્મ સમજ લીધો એટલે પહેરવાનું બસ.
ને પણ એટલે આ એમાંથી જ કંઠી તુલસીના એ નીકળતા હશે ને, જે પેલા એના જે દાણા.
હા, એ તુલસીના જ હશે ને, એના દાણા હશે ને.
ના એનું જે થડ હોય ને એમાંથી મણકા બનાવે.
એમાંથી મણકા બનાવે એટલે એના થડ. બરાબર છે, બરાબર છે. એટલે આઈ ગેસ કે that might be the reason it's so sacred. And it reminds you the God always, with you.
And maybe it's a medicine purpose too, કે પહેરવાથી કે થતું હશે medicine.
I mean, it's possible. It may be that they believed in those kind of things. Yeah.
Right, they might have believed in that.
Yeah.
અને ભગવાનનું નામ દઈ દે એટલે પછીથી બધા પહેરે એમ. આપણે તો બધું
જો મેં ના પહેરી હોત તો મને બ્રાઝિલમાં પેલા ખેંચી ના ગયો હોત.
કંઠી નથી પહેરી, તો સોનું પહેર્યું હતું.
પેલા બીડ તો હતા ને, તુલસી
બીડ નતા અંદર, ના અછોડો હતો.
એટલે
એમ કોને રાજનભાઈ કે પહેર્યા હતા એટલે જાન બચી તમારી, ખાલી એ જ ગયું.
Maybe so, you're right.
ના કંઠી પહેર્યો તો પેલાનો હાથ તૂટી જતો, પણ તમને કશું ના થાય.
રાજનભાઈ, તમને ખબર નથી, એ કૃષ્ણ જ તમને ખેંચવા આવ્યો તો પણ તમે ગયા નહીં. તમને ખેંચવા આવ્યો કે ચાલ મારી જોડે. તમે સ્મિતાનો હાથ છોડ્યો નહીં, એમાં તકલીફ થઈ.
કાળો હતો તો કૃષ્ણ જોશે.
Maybe so, you're right. Okay, well, let's finish with this one. Pavitra Baras નું તમે પૂછ્યું તો I think Nainaben talked about Pavitra Baras. So this is the explanation that I found. Please be present in this Pavitra from your abode. So the thread has 365 threads offered to Lord with the sentiment of confession and regret. Each thread represents service to Krishna. The 365 days. So essentially, you are doing service to Lord Krishna 365 days a year. So not saptah, not 1 week, but 365 continuous days. That's the idea.
Oh, okay.
All right. કેટલી વાર છે હવે અશોકભાઈ?
It's 8 o'clock. બીજી 10 મિનિટમાં it will end.
Okay, let's finish one more slide. Yeah, then we'll stop. Yeah.
4 જ મિનિટ છે.
4 મિનિટ બાકી છે. Sorry.
Okay, so you want to stop now?
Yeah, so we can do the.
Let's stop. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Happy birthday ગાઈએ.
Yeah.
દિનેશભાઈ પૂછે છે કશું?
Okay.
ના પહેલા હેપી બર્થડે ગાઈ લો પછી.
Okay.
Okay, ચાલો, thank you.
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday,
dear
Sita Ben.
Happy birthday
to you.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, speech.
Yes, I get big hug, that's it.
That's the best.
I thought
સાંભળીને
રાજેન્દ્રભાઈએ તમારો ભાવતું કઈ બનાવ્યું હશે.
Yeah, I thought the same way.
રાજન અને ભાવતું એટલે મારે જ બનાવવું પડે મારે માટે. છોલે ખવડાય.
Okay, my question was કે આપણે આ હિન્દુઇઝમમાં all this thing kind of looks very funny, અને આજના આ બધું તમે અત્યારે કોઈ યંગ ને કહો તો કે આ બધું ગાંડા જેવી વાતો કરો તમે. My question is there similar things in other religion, like in Christianity?
Yes.
All the religions have rituals which are symbolic in meaning, but people do it on a basis without understanding. People do it. આપણે તમે કેથોલિક ટેમ્પલમાં ચર્ચમાં જાઓ તો તમને પતાસું આપે છે.
Yeah.
પછી there is a system called Eucharist, which basically means that blood of Christ is in that. So it's called Eucharist. EUCHRIST. When you drink the wine, you are essentially symbolizing yourself with the bleeding of Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay, let me drink wine.
So I mean, there are
Pratap bhai, you and I are really
Christian.
તમે બંને જણ તો છે ને કાલે શ્રીનાથજીના ટેમ્પલની બહાર વાઇન મળતો તો તમે ત્યાં પણ આવી જશો.
તો લોકો
even the Ash Wednesday and all those things are actually these rituals are they're symbolic.
40 days.
I think, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I just put all these things because we wanted to talk about Pusti Maga. I mean, not that I'm too interested to know all those things, but now that I have read, now I know more about it than I used to know.
Some of the things are good to know, like okay.
કારણ કે આપણે બધું કરીએ છીએ ને બધું જાણ્યા વગર કરીએ છીએ એના કરતા this is a good
No, it's a good thing to know. ભાઈ આવું કેમ કરીએ છીએ?
Actually, because our children ask us question and we have no answer. આપણે તો પેલા આંધળાની જેમ બાપાએ કીધું આમ કરવાનું એટલે કરવાનું ને કર્યા કર્યું. હવે અહીંયાના અત્યારના છોકરાઓને અમારે સુભાષની ડોટર હવા બહુ સવાલ પૂછતી હતી અમને મિશનમાં. એટલે એકવાર અમે એને કીધું કે ડોન્ટ આસ્ક એની મોર ક્વેશ્ચન્સ, નો મોર વાયઝ. એટલે તરત એને હજુ 1 મિનિટ નથી થઈને કે why don't I have to ask why? અરે why don't I have to ask why? But this is what the kids are.
કારણ કે તમે છોકરાઓને મૂકો ને પછીથી જે છોકરો આખો દિવસ ક્યુરિયસ વાય 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 કરે તો પેલો ટીચર બેસાડી જ દે ને આ તો તું પાછળ બેસ કે છે